It was supposed to be just another accident, a routine highway crash outside a quiet Texas town. Officer Rachel Monroe was the first to respond. She was seen helping victims, waving traffic, and speaking calmly into her radio. Then, in the middle of all the chaos, she vanished. Her patrol car stayed behind. So did her badge, her hat, and her half-empty coffee cup. But Rachel was gone. There were dozens of people on scene, cops, medics, even news crews. No one saw her leave. No one saw her taken. For the next 15 years, her name would disappear from department reports. Her case would be quietly shut down until one day, a tow truck driver clearing out a ravine made a discovery so disturbing it would finally expose the secret her town tried to bury. And once you hear what he found, you'll understand why this case was never meant to be solved. It was just another cold morning in January 1988. Officer Rachel Monroe sat alone in her patrol car, sipping coffee from a paper cup. The heater was on low. Frost still clung to the windshield. Her shift had been quiet so far. Just one traffic stop and a call about a lost dog. She glanced at her watch. Almost 7:45 a.m. Suddenly, the radio crackled. Dispatch to Unit 12. We've got a multi-vehicle crash on Route 22. Possible injuries. You're closest. Rachel sat up. Her calm face changed. She grabbed the radio and answered, "Copy that. On my way." She turned on her lights, took one last sip of coffee, and pulled out onto the road. The crash site wasn't far. Maybe 10 minutes down the highway. She knew that stretch well. Sharp turns, thin shoulders. Fog liked to sit there in the mornings. As she drove, she kept one hand on the wheel, one on the radio. Her eyes were sharp, focused. She didn't know it yet, but this would be the last call she ever answered. Rachel arrived on Route 22 just before 8 a.m. The crash looked worse than expected. 3 cars were spun out across the road. One had hit a guardrail. Another was smoking from the hood. Glass and debris covered the pavement. Rachel didn't panic. She jumped out of her car and got to work. She waved a delivery truck to a stop and used her flashlight to guide traffic around the mess. A small boy cried in the back seat of one of the crashed cars. Rachel knelt beside the open door and talked softly to him until paramedics arrived. "Help's coming, buddy. Just hang on." A man tried to walk away from the scene, confused and bleeding from the head. Rachel stopped him gently, helped him sit, and called for a medic. Witnesses later said she moved with purpose, fast but calm. But one thing stood out. A firefighter later said she kept glancing toward the woods. She looked nervous, he said, like she was waiting for something. Nobody thought much of it at the time, but that detail would haunt everyone later. On the side of the road, just past the main crash, was a stalled blue van. Inside was a woman in her 40s. She wasn't hurt, just shaken. The engine had died right before the crash happened. She hadn't seen much. Rachel walked over and spoke to her quietly. No one could hear what they said. Witnesses saw Rachel lean into the driver's side window. The woman nodded slowly, then looked down. One person nearby said Rachel touched the woman's arm gently, like she was comforting her or warning her. The woman later told police she didn't remember much, just that Rachel seemed worried about something else, not the crash. She wouldn't say more. To this day, no one knows exactly what was said during that short, quiet moment, but it was the last real conversation Rachel Monroe ever had. Around 8:10 a.m., Rachel was seen walking toward the tree line just beyond crash site. A paramedic assumed she was checking for more victims. Maybe someone had been thrown from a car. It wasn't unusual to do a sweep near wooded areas. Rachel didn't say anything. She didn't call it in, she just walked. She moved slowly down the slope, her boots crunching through dead leaves. The fog was still thick in places. Trees grew tight together near the bottom dot. About 5 minutes later, a firefighter called her name. They needed her up top to redirect an ambulance. No answer. They called again. Still nothing. 2 officers went looking for her. They found nothing, just the woods and silence. Back at the road, her cruiser was still running. The driver's door was open. Her police hat was on the seat. A radio, still switched on, lay next to it. Rachel Monroe had vanished. Not in the middle of nowhere, but in plain sight. Rachel never came back. Her cruiser sat on the roadside, engine still running. The driver's side door was open, like she'd just stepped out for a second. Her police hat was on the passenger seat. Her radio was lying on the floor, still on. And her badge, scratched but shining, was stuck between the seat cushions. The keys were still in the ignition. Nothing inside the car was broken. No signs of a struggle. Her gun was holstered. Unused. It didn't make sense. Officers stood around her car in silence. One said it felt like she'd been snatched by the trees. But there were no footprints, no screams, no blood, nothing dotted. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, with the crash site just a few yards behind her and dozens of people nearby. And yet, not one person saw her go. By 9 a.m., Rachel was officially declared missing. More officers arrived. Then sheriff deputies. Then helicopters. Police dogs were brought in, trained to track her scent. Teams lined up shoulder to shoulder and moved through the forest near the crash site. For hours, they searched every ravine, every creek, every patch of thorny brush, but nothing. No torn clothing, no signs of a fight, no blood. The dogs picked up a faint scent leading down the slope. But then it vanished. Just stopped cold. One searcher later said. It was like she walked into the woods and stepped into a hole that didn't exist. Helicopters hovered above for hours, scanning with thermal cameras. Still nothing. Divers even checked nearby ponds and storm drains. They found garbage, tires, and a rusted bike, but no trace of Rachel Monroe. By sundown, the search was scaled back. But no one was ready to give up. Not yet. She was one of their own. Word spread fast. A police officer. Gone. Without a trace? In broad daylight? Right after responding to a crash. The small town of Elbridge was stunned. People gathered outside the police station. Some brought candles. Others brought questions. Did someone take her? Was it the crash? Why did she walk into the woods alone? Rumors spread quickly and got louder by the hour. Some believed she ran away, that maybe she was overwhelmed and snapped. Others thought she'd been kidnapped, that someone had been waiting in those trees. And a few whispered the most dangerous idea of all. Maybe she saw something she wasn't supposed to. A woman at a local diner said Rachel had looked nervous lately. A mechanic claimed she'd stopped by his shop a week earlier, asking strange questions. None of it made sense at the time. But now? Everyone had a theory, and none of them felt safe. 2 days after Rachel vanished, the police held a press conference. The room was quiet. A captain stepped up to the mic and gave a short update. Calm voice. No emotion. We believe this is a standard missing person case. There is no current evidence of foul play. People watching at home couldn't believe it. Rachel disappeared while on duty, in uniform, in daylight, with a running car and a crash scene behind her. And now, the department was acting like she just ran off. The news reporters didn't push back. No tough questions. The police said they would continue searching, but only in reasonable areas. They told the public not to panic. Rachel's family sat in the front row. Her mother looked down. Her father stared straight ahead. Behind them, a few officers shuffled nervously. Someone whispered, "They don't want to dig too deep." And honestly, It felt true. Rachel's father, Thomas Monroe, was a retired firefighter. Tough man, quiet type. But at that press conference, something in him snapped. He stepped forward, past the crowd of reporters, and raised his voice. My daughter didn't run away. He said Rachel had spent her life helping others. That she was calm in chaos, steady, focused, brave. She's not someone who panics and bolts. She didn't leave her car running for fun. She didn't leave her badge behind. Something happened. To her, the police tried to steer him away, but he wouldn't stop. He held up a photo of Rachel as a child, wearing his old firefighter helmet. The room went still. I raised her to protect people, he said. And now no one's protecting her. That clip aired on every news station in the state. People started listening. Not everyone believed the police anymore. Some started asking their own questions. Investigators started digging into the case, but the more they looked, the less they found out there was no dashcam footage. Rachel's cruiser had an older unit that wasn't recording that day. No nearby traffic cams either. The stretch of Route 22 had no coverage. The crash victims were interviewed again. Most said they barely saw Rachel. They were focused on their own injuries, their cars, the chaos. A few didn't remember seeing her at all. One person, a teenager with a head injury, said Rachel helped him sit down, then walked away. But he couldn't recall where she went. Nothing from the crash site gave any solid clue. No fingerprints, no drop gear, no boot prints in the woods. Everything just stopped. It felt like every lead had disappeared or never existed to begin with. Then, a possible clue. A man who'd been in the crash, a delivery driver, called police 2 weeks later. He said he remembered something strange. There was a red pickup truck, he said, parked a little off the road near the woods. The guy inside wasn't hurt. He wasn't involved in the crash. The driver claimed he saw Rachel speaking with the man. He said it looked tense, like an argument. She leaned into the window. He grabbed the wheel. She backed up. He didn't hear what they said. Didn't think it mattered at the time. Police followed up. They searched traffic records for red trucks in the area. They put out a call for tips, but no one else remembered the vehicle. No dash cams, no plates. Nothing concrete. Within a few days, the lead faded, like everything else in this case. It slipped through their fingers. After the red truck lead went nowhere, things started to slow down. Case files kept piling up, but there was nothing new inside them. Just copies of the same interviews, the same photos, the same dead ends. Weeks passed. Then months. Officers stopped mentioning Rachel's name in daily roll calls. Her file sat untouched in the records room. Someone forgot to update the logs. The case was still open, technically, but it didn't feel like it. Rachel's mom went to the station to ask for an update. A clerk told her someone would call back. No one ever did. Eventually, even the local news stopped covering the story. From the outside, it looked like they were moving on. But inside the Monroe house, the fight was just getting started. Rachel's parents couldn't sit still. They printed hundreds of flyers with her photo and taped them to every street pole in town. Her mom knocked on doors. Her dad stood outside grocery stores, handing out pamphlets with tear-off tabs. They visited homes near the crash site, talked to campers, truckers, hunters, anyone who might have been near those woods on the day. She vanished. Most people were kind, but no one had answers. The family begged the police to reopen parts of the case, to search again, to call in state investigators. But each time, they were told the same thing. We're doing what we can. The Monroes didn't believe it. Not anymore. One night, Rachel's dad stood outside the police station with a poster board sign. "Where's Officer Monroe?" He didn't say a word. He just stood there. People honked in support. A few joined him, but inside the department, the blinds stayed closed. Then, something strange started happening. A few officers quietly, off the record, began asking questions of their own. One detective, who had worked with Rachel a few times, told a reporter she was too sharp to just vanish. She must have seen something. Another officer hinted that Rachel had complained before about a supervisor, someone she didn't trust. There were whispers that the crash might not have been random, that the red truck wasn't just a coincidence. One rumor even suggested Rachel had found something, maybe evidence from another case, and that someone didn't want it coming out, but none of it could be confirmed. No one would speak on the record. Too risky. Behind closed doors, a few good cops were trying to push the case forward, but they were blocked, paperwork delayed, approvals denied. It started to feel like someone was slowing things down. On purpose. And Rachel's parents? They had no idea any of this was happening. As the years rolled on, Rachel Monroe's name stopped coming up. People didn't mention her at grocery stores anymore. Her missing posters faded. The news moved on. But the silence? It didn't feel normal. It felt forced, like everyone had agreed not to ask questions. There were no new leads, no updates, no clues. It was like Rachel had just vanished from Earth. The Monroe family still left her porch light on every night. But at the station, her desk was cleared out, her name removed from the roster. New officers had never even heard of her. Behind closed doors, though, that silence was loud. People felt something was off, but no one said it out loud. The town didn't forget Rachel. They just didn't talk about her. And when they did, it was in hushed voices, because deep down, they all felt the same thing. Something was being hidden. Began with whispers at the diner, or during late-night shifts at the gas station. Maybe Rachel saw something that night. Someone would say something she wasn't supposed to. That spread. Some claimed she found a body near the crash site, not from the accident, but from something else. A secret. Others said she stumbled onto dirty money, drugs, or a cover-up. The boldest rumor? That someone in law enforcement made her disappear. No proof. No names, just whispers. People started pointing fingers. Old grudges came back. Theories grew wilder. One woman even claimed she saw Rachel, alive, at a truck stop 2 states over. But when they checked security footage, nothing. Still, the stories wouldn't stop. The town didn't believe Rachel just ran off. Too many things felt wrong. And so, piece by piece, they built their own version of the truth, each theory different, but all filled with doubt. Rachel had once dated another officer, Kyle Denton. They broke up months before she disappeared. It wasn't messy, at least not in public. But after Rachel vanished, Kyle acted strange. He didn't show up to the first search. He skipped the press conference. People noticed, and when asked about Rachel, he gave short answers. Cold ones. Neighbors remembered hearing arguments before they split. One said Kyle had a temper. No one had proof. Kyle still worked at the department, but he kept to himself. Some people in town were sure he knew more than he let on. Others thought it was just gossip, but the rumor stuck. Even years later, folks would glance at Kyle's house when they drove by. Some believed he was hiding something. Others said he was just heartbroken. Either way, his name always came up when people whispered about Rachel. Suspicion never really left him. One clue, small but strange, came from a waitress at Rachel's favorite diner. Her name was Marla. She'd served Rachel breakfast the morning she disappeared. Marla remembered it clearly because something felt off. She looked tired. Marla said, worried, like her mind was somewhere else. Rachel sat in a corner booth, ordered eggs, toast, and black coffee, her usual. But that day, she barely touched the food. She sipped the coffee once or twice, then just stared out the window. Marla asked if she was okay. Rachel smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then, suddenly, Rachel stood up, left hash on the table, half her coffee still full, eggs untouched. She walked out fast, almost like she was late for something. Hours later, she was gone. Marla told police what she remembered. They wrote it down, but no one ever followed up again. Like it didn't matter. After the diner memory came out, others started speaking up too. A young man named Jeremy worked nights at a gas station just off the highway. He remembered Rachel stopping in once, about 3 weeks before she disappeared. She came in for coffee and a snack. Looked exhausted. Jeremy said he tried to make small talk, joked about the late shift. That's when Rachel said something strange. Sometimes I feel safer off duty. He laughed at first, thinking she was joking, but she didn't smile. He asked what she meant, and she just shook her head. Never mind, she said. Forget it. He never brought it up again, until the town started whispering. Until the posters went up. Now he wonders if that one line was a warning. If Rachel already felt something creeping in. If she knew someone was watching her and just didn't know how to say it. Rachel's family never stopped. Her dad, Tom, drove to every radio station in the region. Her mom, Linda, went on TV, holding Rachel's photo and shaking hands. They printed thousands of flyers, paid for billboards, held candlelight vigils. In one live interview, Linda broke down crying. She held her daughter's badge and said, "Someone knows what happened. Please, just tell us." But still, no new leads. The police said they were working on it, but the family felt forgotten. Rachel's brother, Dan, even offered a reward. Still, no tips came in. Every birthday, they left a cupcake on Rachel's front step. Every Christmas, they set a plate for her. Years passed, but her room stayed the same, and behind closed doors, the pain only grew worse. Because not knowing was a wound that never closed, and every day they asked the same question: why did she vanish? In 1995, 7 years after Rachel vanished, a letter arrived at the police station. It was from a prison 2 counties away. The sender? A man serving time for armed robbery. He claimed he overheard another inmate talking in the yard. The man had been drinking homemade alcohol, bragging, loud. He said something that made everyone freeze. They'll never find that cop. She's still in the car, wrecked at the bottom of the ravine. The letter said the inmate laughed after saying it, like it was a joke. But the man writing the letter believed it was real. He didn't know names or dates, but the words stuck with him. The police looked into it, but carefully, quietly. They didn't want press involved, and after a quick check, they shelved the tip. Too vague. No solid link. But Rachel's father? He saw it differently. To him, it sounded like the first real clue. Rachel's dad begged the police to talk to the inmate. Finally, they agreed. The inmate didn't have much, but he drew a rough map, just landmarks, a bridge, some trees, and a sharp curve in the road. He circled a spot and wrote, "Look here." A small team was sent out to check the ravine. They searched for hours. No wrecked car, no remains, nothing. Just mud, branches, and broken glass that had been there for years. The officers called it a dead end. Probably a fake story for attention, but something about it haunted Tom Monroe. That spot on the map, it was only a few miles from where Rachel's cruiser was found running. Door opened. The inmate also gave a warning before the interview ended. He said, if someone did this to her, they didn't do it alone. That part, Tom couldn't forget it, because deep down, he believed it. It was January 1995. Cold. Wind howling through the trees. A small police crew met at the edge of a steep gully just outside town. They had a map. The one from the inmate. The paper was wrinkled, water-stained. But it had a circle marked on it dot, so they went in. The gully was frozen and rough. Ice clung to the branches. Every step was slippery. The ravine had thick brush, old tires, broken signs, and lots of metal scraps from past wrecks. They searched for hours. One officer found a rusted hood buried halfway under the mud. Another found a crushed door panel, but no license plate, no bones, nothing linking it to Rachel Monroe. Still, they dug a little deeper. They found twisted pipes, broken glass, empty beer cans, but no sign of a patrol car. No sign of Rachel. By sunset, they packed up and left. The report was short. No evidence found. Search closed. After that cold search, the ravine was forgotten. No one brought it up again. Not the officers. Not the newspapers. Not even Rachel's family. Tom and Linda Monroe had chased so many leads that went nowhere. This felt like just another dead end. The town moved on. The police boxed up the file, stuck a label on it, and pushed it back into storage. Rachel's name came up less and less in meetings. The new recruits didn't even know who she was. And for the first time, even her mom stopped asking about the gully. In their hearts, the Monroes still believed Rachel was out there, but they didn't know where else to look. The ravine tip faded into rumor, a dead trail. Until 8 years later, when a tow truck driver named Mike Hernandez was sent to that exact same spot. And this time, someone finally found something. It was a hot day in July 2003. Mike Hernandez worked for a small towing company in the county. That morning, he got a strange job. Clear scrap metal from the old gully, the work order said. By the creek bend, south slope. Mike didn't want the job. It was muddy, buggy, out of the way, but he needed the hours. So he drove his flatbed down the gravel road and parked at the edge of the gully. He slipped on gloves, grabbed a crowbar, and started yanking at old metal wrecks tangled in vines. Most of it was garbage, broken frames, shredded fenders, rusted panels. He was swatting mosquitoes, and ready to give up when he saw it. A smashed-up red truck frame, wedged under 2 fallen logs. Looked like it had been there for years. He sighed and muttered, "Great, just what I needed." Then he started pulling. Mike pushed branches aside and leaned into the truck frame. The door was crushed inward. Glass shattered. Paint flaked off like dead skin. He grabbed the edge and gave it a hard pull. It groaned, then snapped free with a wet crack. Something fell out of the door pocket. Small, silver-dotted first. Mike thought it was junk, maybe a bottle cap. But when he picked it up, he froze. It was a badge, caked in mud. Dented, but real. He rubbed it on his shirt sleeve. The badge shimmered under the dirt. His hands were shaking. There was a nameplate near the bottom. Scratched, barely readable. He held it closer. Monroe. Mike's heart dropped. He didn't know much about the case, but he remembered the name. Rachel Monroe. The missing traffic officer? He stepped back, breathing heavy. This wasn't just junk metal anymore. He called his supervisor, and within an hour, the ravine was crawling with police. Mike didn't touch anything else. He stepped back from the frame, eyes still locked on the badge in his hand. His voice shook as he called the sheriff's office. "I think I found something important." Officers arrived within 20 minutes. No sirens. No lights. Just silence. They walked slowly down into the gully. One of them looked at the truck and froze. He turned to the others and said quietly, "Get crime scene on the radio. Now." They pushed yellow tape around the site and made a tight perimeter. No one said much. They didn't tell the press. Not yet. Not even the other deputies. They needed to be sure what this was and what it meant. Mike sat on the edge of his truck bed, still holding the badge. A detective asked, "Did you move anything else?" Mike shook his head. "No, sir. I didn't touch a thing. That night, floodlights lit up the gully. Crime scene techs arrived with gloves, cameras, and zip bags. They worked carefully. First, they cleared the branches and mud off the red truck. The driver's side was smashed in. The frame bent like paper. It looked like it had hit something hard or been pushed down. They pried the crushed door open with metal tools. Inside the cab was a mess: ripped fabric, a broken seatbelt, a shattered radio, crushed under the dashboard. In the back corner of the seat, they found strands of long hair, light brown, under the floor mat. Something soft, a torn piece of cloth, navy blue, with a silver button. It matched a police uniform. Further in, behind the passenger seat, they found tiny white fragments. Bone. An officer placed them gently into an evidence bag. Then someone noticed something strange. Scratched into the inside of the metal door were two letters. Rachel Monroe. Someone had carved her initials into the truck from the inside. It took 2 weeks for the lab results to come back, but when they did, everything changed. The DNA matched. The hair, the bones, even a partial fingerprint lifted from the badge. It was her. Rachel Monroe had been found 15 years after she vanished. She'd been there the whole time. In that gully, in that crushed red truck. The Monroe family got the call at 8:13 p.m. on a Thursday. Her mother dropped the phone. Her father just whispered, "We knew she was close." But there was no peace. Not yet, because something didn't make sense. Rachel was a traffic cop. She drove a white patrol car, not a red pickup. Why was she inside this truck? Why wasn't it found back in 1995, during the first ravine search? Who put her there? And most of all, what really happened to her? The truck didn't belong to Rachel. It was a 1978 red Ford F-150. The VIN number had been scratched out. Plates removed. It was never reported stolen. Never listed in any accident. The vehicle wasn't even registered to anyone after 1986. Whoever placed it in the gully had done it carefully. Hidden under trees, covered in mud and branches. It had been meant to stay buried. Someone didn't want this wreck, or Rachel, to ever be found. And for 15 years, it worked. But now, the truth was finally pushing its way back up from the mud. The truck Rachel was found in didn't match anything on file. No plates, no registration sticker. Nothing in the crash report from 1988. It didn't even show up in state vehicle records. Investigators checked again. Same result. The red pickup was never listed as part of any accident. It was like the truck didn't exist, but someone had gone to a lot of trouble to hide it. The frame was jammed deep into a gully that had flooded years ago. The sides were covered in branches, leaves, and mud, stacked by hand. It wasn't dropped by accident. It was put there on purpose. The tires were flat, the metal rusted, the doors stuck closed, and the letters RM carved into the inside? That didn't just happen. Detectives believed someone wanted Rachel and this truck to disappear. For 15 years, it worked. But now, they were digging it all up. Even though the truck had no plates, the VIN was still there. Barely. It had been scratched and dented, but techs managed to lift the number using special lighting and powder. They ran it through the system. The name that came back, Curtis Dale, a mechanic from the same county Rachel patrolled. Curtis had a record: fights, drunk driving, a few weapons charges, and one detail that made everyone freeze. Rachel had written him a ticket just 2 weeks before she vanished. It was for speeding through a construction zone and refusing to show ID. Witnesses said he got angry, slammed his door, called her names. Then drove off. Back then, it was just another traffic stop. But now, it might have been the start of everything. Detectives looked through old logs. There it was. Rachel's name on the citation. She'd written it up by hand. Curtis. Dale was trouble. He'd worked at a small junkyard just outside of town. Locals said he was quiet, unless he was drinking. Then he got loud, aggressive. He'd been fired from at least 3 different jobs. Neighbors remembered hearing yelling from his trailer at night. Some called the police. Others didn't want to get involved. Curtis had a long file: bar fights, threats, resisting arrest. But nothing ever stuck Dot until now. No one had looked at him closely. That changed when his name came up in the truck search. Detectives visited the junkyard, where he once worked. The owner said Curtis used to fix up wrecks, sometimes for cash, sometimes for favors. He also remembered the red Ford. "Yeah, that old thing sat out back for months," the man said. Then one day, it was just gone. Detectives asked where Curtis was now. The answer came fast. "He's dead," the owner said. "Died in '94. Bar fight in Missouri. Got stabbed." Curtis was gone, but the red truck and Rachel's body inside it were still here. Back in 1988, just days before she disappeared, Rachel told a fellow officer something strange. They were on lunch break when she leaned in and whispered, "That guy I ticketed, he followed me home last night." She meant Curtis Dale. Rachel said he drove slow behind her for blocks, then pulled off near a gas station. She felt it was a warning. He never rolled down his window, never said a word, just stared. "He creeps me out," she'd said. "Something's off." Her partner made a note of it in the daily log, just a sentence or two, but no formal report was filed. Back then, it didn't feel urgent. Rachel brushed it off. She didn't want to seem scared. She was tough, respected. But now, looking back, that moment felt huge. A silent threat, hiding in plain sight. One they all missed. Investigators kept digging, not just at the site, but through the past. Old records, tow logs, dispatch tapes from the night Rachel vanished. That's when they found it. A single handwritten line in a 1988 logbook. Red pickup, Highway 14, towed by Morris Garage. 11:47 p.m. Same location. Same night. Rachel disappeared sometime after 11:30. This tow happened minutes later. But there's a problem. That truck was never checked into the impound lot. There's no file, no accident report, no photos. It vanished. The tow company, Morris Garage, had shut down in the early 90s. The owner had passed. But one former driver still lived nearby. They tracked him down. At first, he didn't remember. Then he paused. "Wait," he said. "You mean that night with the lady cop?" He remembered being told to drop the truck off somewhere else. Not the usual yard. No explanation. Just an order from someone in uniform. The truck was never seen again. Until now. That tow log changed everything. If the red truck was taken from the crash site the same night Rachel vanished, and if it never made it to the impound, then someone helped make it disappear. Not just anyone. Someone who had access. Someone who gave orders. Someone inside. The officers working the case grew quiet. Whispers started in the halls. They checked who was on shift that night, who responded to Highway 14, who signed off on the scene. A few names stood out. A few reports seemed too short, too clean. Rachel wasn't just lost. She was covered up, on purpose. This wasn't just a killer trying to hide a crime. It was a betrayal. From inside the department. And now, after 15 years, the people Rachel trusted most might be the same ones who helped hide her. Rachel's parents sat across from the lead detective. They already knew the truck was found. Already knew their daughter was gone. But now came something worse. They were told someone inside the sheriff's department may have helped make Rachel vanish. Her mother went still, hands over her face. Her father shook his head. "Look down. She trusted them," he said, "and they left her to rot in the dark." He didn't cry, but his voice broke. Rachel's brother stormed out of the room. This was their nightmare. Not just losing her, but knowing someone who wore the same badge she did turned on her. The family had waited 15 years for answers. Now that they had them, it felt like their hearts had been ripped open all over again. They asked the detective one question: will they ever pay for this? The answer was silent. The ravine where Rachel's truck was found? It was just 2 miles from the original crash site. 2 miles, 15 years, dozens of search teams, hundreds of tips, and the truth was right there, hidden, but not far. The tow. Driver said he was told to leave it near that dip past the waterline. That dip was the ravine. No cameras, no lights. Just tall trees and deep mud. Back then, it had flooded. Then dried out. Then overgrown with weeds. But still, 2 miles. That's what hurt the most. If someone had just looked harder. Followed one more clue. Rachel could have been found years ago, but someone made sure that never happened. They didn't bury her deep underground. They buried her in plain sight. And walked away. 15 years after Rachel vanished, the sheriff's tip line rings again. On the line is a man named Tom Reyes. He sounds older, hesitant, quiet. He says, "I used to wear the badge. I need to tell you something now, before it's too late." Tom Reyes was a deputy back in 1988. He retired in the late 90s, moved states, disappeared from the public eye. But now, for some reason, he's ready to talk. He tells investigators something that stops them cold. 3 weeks before Rachel vanished, she came to him at the station. Late evening, alone. She wasn't there to chat. She was digging. She had questions about a missing persons case from a year earlier, one that had been quietly dropped. A 16-year-old girl. Rachel was focused. Obsessed, even. She told Rhea something that stuck with him. She said, "This isn't random. I think someone we work with is involved." Then she walked out. That was the last time Tom Reyes ever saw her. Now, he thinks he should have said something back then. The case Rachel was asking about? It involved a teenage girl named Megan Blake. She was 16, lived in a rural area just outside town, Hollow Creek. Megan vanished in 1987, just 1 year before Rachel. She left for school one morning and was never seen again. No body. No calls. No signs of a struggle. Her backpack was found in a ditch, soaked from rain. The case didn't go far. After a few weeks, it went cold. Some in the department said she ran away. Others weren't so sure. Rachel wasn't either. She had gone back to the old files, looked at every note, every officer who touched the case, and one detail jumped out. A patrol car was logged in Hollow Creek hours before Megan vanished, but no officer claimed it. Rachel had a theory. She believed someone in law enforcement knew exactly what happened to Megan Blake. Tom Reyes told detectives something else. Rachel didn't just think Megan Blake's case was foul play. She thought the crash that happened the day she vanished wasn't an accident at all. She believed it was a setup. She never filed anything, never put it in writing. But Reyes remembers her words. That crash wasn't random. It was timed. Rachel believed a multi-car pileup on Highway 14 was designed to pull her away from where she was supposed to be. That morning, she was heading toward Hollow Creek. She told no one why, not even Reyes, just that she had gotten a tip from someone who claimed to know what happened to Megan. She left early, in uniform, didn't check in with dispatch. The crash happened 15 minutes later, miles away from Hollow Creek. Rachel responded, like any good officer would. And that's the last time anyone saw her alive. Now Reyes wonders, if that crash hadn't happened, would Rachel have found the truth? A week after Reyes speaks, another call comes in, this time from Dennis McCraw. a former deputy who moved to Colorado years ago. He tells investigators something shocking. He was on the force the morning Rachel vanished, and he saw her right before she disappeared. McCraw says he drove past the ravine just after 7 a.m. He saw a patrol car there. Rachel was standing near the trees, talking to a man. He didn't recognize the guy. But here's the part that haunts him. Rachel looked tense, her arms crossed, one hand on her belt. McCraw slowed down, but didn't stop Dodd. He was already late too. A call. He never mentioned what he saw Dodd until now. He thought someone else would report it. No. One did. Now he believes Rachel was meeting someone. Maybe to hear that tip. And maybe it was a trap. Dennis McCraw hesitates. When detectives ask why he never came forward, his voice cracks. You didn't hear the rumors back then. I did. He says there were whispers in the department. Strange things. People joking about Rachel. Asking too many questions. He even heard someone say, she's gonna get herself disappeared like that girl in Hollow Creek. McCraw didn't know what to believe, but he felt it. The tension. The unspoken warnings. And then there was that morning, when he saw Rachel by the ravine, talking to a man in the woods. After she vanished, McCraw says he wanted to speak up. But something stopped him. Fear. Double quotes. What if I ended up like her? He tells them. He says he kept telling himself someone else would speak. Someone else would dig. But no one did. Until now. The cold case unit pulls boxes from storage. Inside one, buried under files. They find it. A small, beat-up spiral notebook. Rachel's handwriting. Page after page. She had been working on something off the clock, and no one knew. The notebook is filled with names, dates, maps. She was tracking a pattern. Megan Blake's disappearance. Curtis Dale, the red pickup. Patrol car logs that didn't. Match officer reports. She had written false call, Hollow Creek area, 3 days before her crash. Circled twice. One name shows up more than once. SGT Glenn Carter. He was a senior officer back then. Worked directly with Rachel. On paper, a model cop. But he was also a close friend of Curtis Dale. Rachel underlined his name twice and wrote, protecting someone or covering something up. SGT. Carter died in 1997. Heart attack. No investigation. But Rachel clearly believed he was involved. The notebook makes one thing clear. She was getting too close. When detectives map out Rachel's notebook notes, something chilling appears. 2 girls gone. Same area. Same people. Megan Blake vanished in 1987. Rachel Monroe vanished in 1988. Both were somehow connected to Curtis Dale and SGT Carter. And then there's the red pickup. Old. Unregistered. Hidden. The same truck where Rachel's remains were found. That same truck had been spotted near Hollow Creek 2 days after Megan vanished. One officer filed a report about it. That report was pulled the next day. Gone. Rachel found the truck's trail in old logs and wrote, same vehicle. Same route. 2 girls. She knew something was wrong, and she was close to proving it. But someone else knew that too. The pattern was there, and it had already cost 2 lives. Rachel Monroe believed in justice. She believed in her badge. But when she followed the truth, it led her straight into danger. She tried to do the right thing, to expose something dark hiding inside her own department. But the deeper she went, the more isolated she became. And in the end, no one came to help. Now, 15 years later, her notebook and her bones in a crushed truck are the only voices left telling the truth. Rachel was silenced. Not by a stranger, but by a system that was supposed to protect her. She wasn't just lost. She was buried. It takes weeks to put everything together. The notebook, the old call logs, the vein records, the hidden truck, and the bone fragments. The cold case team believes they have enough. They present it all to a grand jury. The jury listens. They look at photos. They ask questions, but there's a problem. The key suspect, Curtis Dale, is dead. The officer who may have covered it up, SGT, Carter, is also gone. A few witnesses are too old to remember. Some files are still missing. It's a puzzle with broken pieces. The jurors debate for hours. Then the decision comes in. No indictments. No charges. The law says there's just not enough. Anymore. The evidence is real. But too much time has passed. 15 years. The case is closed. Again, Rachel's family sits in silence. As the news is read aloud in court. No one says a word. The moment the verdict hits the news, it spreads fast. People are furious. Headlines call it a disgrace. Talk shows shout about the failure of justice. Social media floods with the hashtag justice for Rachel. The town of Maple Falls turns angry. Rachel was one of their own. She wore the badge. She tried to do the right thing. And now, no one will be held responsible. Reporters chase former officers. Cameras show up at their homes. One retired sergeant slams his door shut. Another says, "We were told to leave it alone." The mayor is asked to comment. He won't. But the people won't stop talking. They demand someone answer. They want to know, how did this happen? And why did it take 15 years to even try? The pressure becomes too much. After days of silence, the Maple Falls Police Department holds a press conference. A few reporters. A few cameras. Then the police chief steps up to the microphone. He doesn't give excuses. He doesn't try to spin the story. He just says, "We failed Rachel Monroe." His voice is quiet, heavy. We lost records. We mishandled evidence. We missed chances to find the truth. He doesn't name names, but he doesn't have to. Behind him stand several officers, heads down, hands clasped. The chief ends with this: Rachel was one of us. She deserved better. Her family deserved better. And our town deserved better. Then he walks away. No questions. Just silence. And a room full of people who finally hear what should have been said. Years ago. The day is gray and quiet. Rachel Monroe is finally being laid to rest. 15 years after she vanished. Her casket is draped in an American flag. Her father, now older and slower, walks beside it. He clutches the badge she once wore. The church is packed. Officers in dress blues line the pews. Many didn't know her personally, but they came anyway. A single bagpiper plays as they carry her casket down the aisle. Outside, the roads are closed. A police escort leads the way to the cemetery. Strangers line the sidewalk, hats in hand. Some wipe tears. Rachel is buried next to her mother. Her father kneels by the grave. He's given the folded flag. He whispers something. No one hears what. Then, he stands and walks away. At the grave, someone places a small photo of Rachel in uniform, smiling. Beneath it, someone writes, "She kept her promise," even when no one else did. At the end of the funeral, everyone is standing. Then, Rachel's father steps toward the front. His hands shake a little as he takes the microphone. He looks out at the crowd, officers, neighbors, strangers, and then he speaks. "She died doing her job," he says, "trying to protect this town." He pauses, and then the truth was treated like trash, just like her body. The room falls silent. No one moves. No one says a word. Rachel's mother died not knowing what happened. Her father lived 15 years waiting for this day. He looks down at his daughter's photo. She didn't just vanish, he says. She was buried twice, once in that ravine and once by silence. Then he walks away. There's nothing else to say. The silence stays with the room, long after he's gone. A few months later, the Maple Falls Police Museum adds a new exhibit. It's small. just a glass case. Inside, Rachel's rusted badge, still bent from the wreck. A cracked radio, its antenna broken off, and a photo of the red pickup, taken as it was lifted from the ravine. There's a plaque beneath it. It reads, "To the officer they left behind." Some officers visit the museum quietly. Some cry. Others just stare. Visitors read about the case. Some leave notes. Some leave flowers. No one takes selfies here. There's no excitement in this story, just regret. One child asks his dad, why didn't they help her? The father doesn't answer. He just looks at the badge behind the glass and walks away. The wreck is gone. The red truck was removed, piece by piece. The twisted metal hauled off. The soil beneath it scraped clean. Nothing was left behind. Locals say the ravine feels different now. Quieter, heavier. The air still feels thick, like it remembers. Birds don't land there. Even the wind seems slower. The trees, once blocking the view, have been trimmed back. There's a small wooden post now. At the edge of the road. It says, Rachel Monroe, officer, daughter, never found until now. People stop there sometimes. They bring flowers. A few say prayers. Others just stand and look down into the space where the truck sat, hidden for 15 years. The forest tried to keep her secret, but not forever. Rachel Monroe served with honor. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She stood her ground, even when no one stood beside her. But after she disappeared, the truth didn't vanish by accident. It was buried. Not by time. Not by nature. But by people. People who looked the other way. People who lost records. People who chose silence. For 15 years, Rachel's name was left off every list, until one random discovery pulled her back into the light. The final shot fades in, the red truck being hoisted from the ravine. Dirt spilling from its doors. Next to it, a crushed radio, a rusted badge. That badge now sits behind glass. It's more than a memory. It's a warning. Because Rachel Monroe didn't disappear. She was erased, and it took too long to bring her back.